Good evening, ladies and gentlemen out there in YouTube land. I am Deleted Scenes, human being American, and YouTuber Ronin. I'd like to welcome you to tonight's episode of Unscripted, episode 112, the best of 2025 so far. I want to say hello to everyone currently joining us on X. I can't see you, but I know that you're there. Please hit the like, share out the stream, subscribe to the channel, become a member. Already in the chat, friend of the channel at KHC 2005, leaving a $1 super chat. See you, sir. Faithful Blue Wrench channel member, that bird woman of YouTube. Watch out for her channel, Fluff Chick Productions. Honey Theory. Friend of the channel, Deep and Zach. All right. Let's get to it. Now, way back in episode 3, I did an episode entitled A Star Rating System is Born. And in that episode, I explained my personal rating system and why I rate movies in a certain way. But since then, times have changed. And one thing that I do a lot more than I ever thought I would is to see movies online, either on streaming or through other means, which we do not condone, or at least we're not supposed to. Now, it's very odd for me to say to wait and see a movie when it's streaming, when I waited to see a movie on a streaming service, or if I waited to rent it, because there are a number of factors behind why I may miss a movie in theaters. It could be that I am unaware of the film. It could be that it could be lack of interest. It could be lack of initial interest, lack of time, because I work 5, sometimes 6 days a week. And then, as you know, I do have a rather busy YouTube schedule. I don't always have the chance to go out to a theater and see a movie. And there's usually a pretty quick turnaround. When I was a kid, a movie would be in theaters. And if it did well, if it had legs, as they say, it would be held over for X number of weeks. And if you got really lucky, like say with something like E.T. or Raiders of the Lost Ark, months or years. You would eventually have the film back, when video basically became more prevalent, like VHS. And then eventually the film coming out on cable. That would be a year. Now you have a movie that a movie will go to streaming, or at the very least go to digital, in about 30 to 45 days. Basically, when it comes to having a theatrical run, unless your film does, so to speak, have legs, whatever you made on that opening weekend is pretty much what your movie is going to get. So when I joke around and say that the movie's going to be out on streaming in a fortnight, that's not entirely a joke. It's usually true. So I've been thinking about it, because there is a segment of my rating system that deals with movies that you see on streaming. But when I conceived of that rating system, the point was sort of wait until a movie comes out on streaming in order to see it. What do I do if I see a movie that's already there and I choose to review it? So it's like, okay, and this is something that Troy Pacelli brought up to me. So I'm actually partially thanking him, because he put this into the words that I was looking for, and I was kind of struggling for. Is, all right, see a movie on streaming, but is it worth the bandwidth to download it? And that kind of put it all into perspective for me. So whether my rating system in and of itself changes in any way, I don't know. Because I think it's pretty solid on its own. But what I do think I want to do is go through all of the movies that I have seen so far this year. And I have accounts on Criticless and Letterboxd, so you can find me in both places. And my lists are on both platforms. What I think I'm going to do is I'm going to go and look at my list for this year and go film by film and kind of decide, which movies are the worth seeing in theater movies, which are the worth buying on disc movies, what are the streaming movies, which I now have. Like I said, I am now qualifying from it's a streaming movie, only watch it on streaming, to the movies that don't quite achieve that mark, the movies that, as Troy puts it, are not worth the bandwidth. And then when you start to get to that point anyway, and I'm talking about the movies that I would rate 2 stars or below. And to me, 2 stars when I give a movie like a 2 out of 5, it's usually because the movie was boring. Really more than anything else. And I just really wasn't into it, not really buying it. But does that qualify as a not worth the bandwidth movie? I don't know. And that's kind of what I am trying to decide. There's this weird kind of middle ground, you know. And I haven't quite reconciled myself with that middle ground just yet. But I'm kind of getting the feeling that when I go through the movies that I've seen this year, and I take this time out to reevaluate them, which is basically what I'm doing, I think I'm going to find myself downgrading a lot of movies down to 2.5. Or maybe even 2 stars. Now, I have reviewed a number of movies on this channel. I haven't reviewed everything that I've seen, but I've reviewed a lot of them. And there might be a couple of those that may change. So I find myself trying to decide, because the thing in the end is I don't look at movies the same way that I used to. I don't have the love for them that I used to have. And there's a real quantity over quality problem in Hollywood, and I just wish that they would go back. Go back to the 80s, go back to those early to mid 80s. And just look at the number of films that were released by studios in a year. And get a marketing campaign behind them and generate interest and get people to go back. And that's really what I'm looking for. Bring me back to the days of E.T., of Raiders of the Lost Ark, bring me back to Gandhi, Amadeus, The Right Stuff. The Thing, Friday the 13th. Every week, every new movie that would come out, a banger. And sure, there were movies that were better than others, but man, at least they were trying. And that's what I miss. And that's what I want to go back to. And if they could do that, I think people would come back to theaters. Because honestly, there is no real incentive to go. I'm not sitting here right now telling people not to go to theaters. I would never say that. But I find myself personally looking for excuses not to go. And I'm someone who would go to the movies every week, sometimes twice a week. I'm not that guy anymore. I don't go as often. When I was a kid, the most it cost for me to get into a movie would maybe be $2.50 at most. Those were the matinee prices, $2.50. There were some places that were $1 to $1.50. The point was a movie was affordable. Okay, you had money. You could go and buy up half of the concession stand and not break the bank. Or you could go to the Orange Julius next door to the theater after the movie was over. You weren't breaking the bank, is the point. And you went to go see a movie that was damn good. And I miss those times. And the thing is yes, exactly what Dave is saying here. Are thinking, can I justify the cost of a ticket for that movie? You know, it is on average $16 for one person to get into a movie. Now imagine if you had a family of 4 going to see a movie. That's $60 plus concessions. And what if you take like an Uber or some sort of public transportation to get there? What if you're in that kind of a situation? Then you got to pay for the trip up and you got to pay for the trip back. And there are not very many movies made anymore that, in my opinion, justifies the prices and the headache of actually getting up off your couch and going to a movie. And I think how I rate movies is going to change because of that basis. And I'll be going probably a little bit deeper into that later on. But, however, I do have some good news to tell you about. And before we get into that, I don't want to ignore the chat because some people have joined us. JPRPH1, channel member. Host of Geeky Geezers, co-host of Friday Night Last Call, my co-host on Live from Sparkwood and 21, Aged Boomers in the House. Our man from the future, Shashi. And Aged Boomer had a question. Is the Phoenician scheme any good? I have not yet seen it. It's 50-50 if I'll see it in theaters or if, again, I will watch it online. I've heard pretty much if you are a Wes Anderson fan, you're going to enjoy it. I have heard some people say that it's good. It's maybe not necessarily his best movie, but that it's good. But you have to a Wes Anderson movie kind of has to be your cup of tea. And his movies are not always going to land with everybody. I really like the animated movies that he's done. I really I loved the Grand Budapest Hotel. Um, that was my favorite movie that year. So I was really happy when it was nominated. I thought that was an excellent film. Um, but a definition scheme I haven't seen. I don't know how or when I'm going to see it. But if I do, I think I'll review it. And as usual, I'll give my honest opinion on it. But it's Wes Anderson. He's an acquired taste. He there are movies of his that I like more than others, but we'll see. I liked his movie Rushmore quite a bit. I always thought that Bill Murray should have been nominated for that film as well. Um, and Anderson's interesting though, because like I said, his movies are very highly stylized. You can tell it's his movie by looking at it. Um, he definitely has a style. You know, I heard it described as it looks like he's shooting everything in a dollhouse, and that's true. you know, especially with his more recent movies. Grand Budapest was definitely like that. He definitely has this style of shooting his films that are not going to be for everybody. But like I said, he's done some good ones. I like Rushmore. I like Grand Budapest Hotel. I like Isle of Dogs. Isle of Dogs is fantastic. I like the Fantastic Mr. Fox quite a bit. Um, what I've seen of Life Aquatic is pretty funny. Um, but yeah, you know, I'm curious about Phoenician Scheme. I haven't seen it. Um, I've heard anything between sort of good to meh, on it, but we'll see. Um, Let me scroll down. I know I'm missing a few people's. Boomer says I'm going to see a movie tomorrow night. I'm thinking 28 years later. Yeah, I need to see that too. I was hoping to see it this week. However, the I did not get the opportunity. Enigma says, "Oh joy, I just finished a movie a minute ago. Okay, which one and how was it?" D Penzak says, "Just watched Asteroid City last night and was let down." Okay, agreed on Grand Budapest. Yeah, yeah, it's a good one. Yeah. Anderson devised conventional filmmaking, also true. However, tonight, like I said, I do have some good news. And for the best of list this year, I have the 6 movies that are in the thumbnail. And they are the movies that at present hold my buy it on 4K rating. They are the movies that I consider the best of the year, kind of the best of the best, the cream of the crop. There are a couple of movies that I've seen that have come close. Dangerous Animals is a very good time at the theater. I recommend seeing that on the big screen. Last Breath was a decent movie with Woody Harrelson, based on a true story. Um, there was a documentary on Netflix that was about the tornado that hit Joplin, Missouri. Very good film. Um, had some added drama in it that didn't need to be there. They didn't really need it. they had the real life story and they had the real life people. They really didn't need to do anything to add to that. So that kind of downgraded that movie a bit in my mind, but it's still very good. So I'm going to get to, in alphabetical order, the 6 movies that I think are worth seeing in 2025 and are worth buying on 4K. All right. Now, my first movie tonight is Steven Soderbergh's Black Bag. And this is starring Michael Fassbender, Cate Blanchett, and Pierce Brosnan. And it is about a spy, a MI6 spy, who finds out that his wife is suspected of being a mole in their organization, and has to make the decision that if she is the guilty party, will he be loyal to her and do everything he can to protect her, even if she is the rat? Or will he kill her for God and country? You know, and for queen and country, I guess, you know, or king and country now, I guess. You know, all right, I'm not British. And this movie is, in my opinion, this generation's Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. I think it's that good. It is a lot of fun. You have this assortment of characters that you meet along the way who are possible suspects. And it becomes a matter of, you know, who can be trusted, and everybody kind of keeping their own secrets, you know, and there are characters who are various stages of corrupt. There are like backdoor affairs going on, and it's a lot of fun watching the way that he's essentially interrogating these people, a lot of the time without them even knowing it. There's this, it's like this like psychological game that's being played, and it's a lot of fun to see how he goes about solving this mystery of, you know, who is this mole, who are they working for, what is this all about, you know, is it, you know, is his wife guilty, is she being framed, you know, can he pull the trigger if he has to? And that's really what it's about. And it's an interesting film. It's kind of you know, like he is very much Michael Fassbender plays a character named George Woodhouse, and he's very much in the vein of like a George Smiley, Harry Palmer, that he's kind of like the missing link between the two. And it's an interesting film. It's only an hour and a half. You can find it on Peacock. It's available to rent. It is out on disc. Give it a look. You're not going to be disappointed. It didn't get a lot of play in theaters, which was a shame. This is not a movie that spoon feeds information to you. You kind of have to pay attention and follow what's going on your own. So check it out. Black Bag is the first of my best of 2025. All right, so let's get on to the second movie that is on my list. Um, before I get to that, though, I do want to bring up the fact that Black Bag is directed by Steven Soderbergh and written by David Cope. And this is actually the second movie they've had out this year. They also did a movie called Presence, which is a ghost story with a bit of a twist. Um, did I gave it kind of a mild recommend. I didn't like it as much as I did Black Bag, but it is worth a look. Has a twist that I'm to the ending that I'm not 100% sure that I buy, but I didn't hate the movie. I just didn't think it was as good as Black Bag was. Both of them are an hour and a half, so you can kind of watch them both back to back if you want to. I mean, honestly, there's nothing wrong with that. All right, now on to the next movie on my list, and that is the Indian film Shiva. As is the synopsis reads as follows: One warrior, one aim, and one epic saga. Shiva's death sparks the Maratha Mughal conflict. His son Samhali, I'm probably massacring all these names, folks, leads the resistance against Aurangzeb's forces. Amid battles and intrigue, both sides face challenges in the struggle for power. And basically, the story is there's a civil war inside India, and you have these two warring factions. You have basically the king being deposed by this warlord. And the action scenes in it are very well done. It's very reminiscent of Braveheart and 300. And it's kind of a mashup of those movies, but all the good parts of those movies. And you have this, like I said, you have this king who's trying to unify India. And then you have this warlord who's like, well, I want India to be one nation under me. And it's it's really it's really interesting, because your lead character, he has a wife, he has a son, who are both ride or dies. He has this group of men around him. These guys are kind of loyal to the death for him, and they get some really good scenes in this as well. And there's a scene where the king and the warlord come face to face. And the warlord says, well, all you have to do is just, renounce your religion and, join me, and, hey, let's go roll together. I'll give you that conceit. And then, our guy, he just says, join me and be whatever religion you want. And I thought, wow, that was a really interesting scene. And this was a movie that was kind of a throwback in my opinion, too, like I said, those epic movies that they used to make, you know, um, it did have this old school feeling to it in the way that it is presented, and having that kind of epic feel to it that is gone from a lot of movies these days. You know, I could imagine watching this movie as a child. I can see comparing this to the epic films of old. I could see Braveheart in this. I could see Lawrence of Arabia. I could see Gandhi in Amadeus and those films that I always bring up, you know. And just the experience of going to the theater and seeing this on a big screen and having that the movie is 2 hours and 41 minutes, and it is the fastest 2 hours and 41 minutes. And there's like a there's like a 10-minute intermission, about 2/3 of the way through. And it did bring me back to this time of going to the cinema that I missed, that it seems to be gone now. And that's why this movie made my list. Now, I'm sure it's probably, in fact, we can even scroll down and look and see where the movie is available. All right. Right now, it's saying it's streaming on Netflix and Plex. So cool. All right. So that's where Chava can be found. So I'm glad that I had the opportunity to see this film on the big screen. I want to thank Paulie, Latino Slant, for making me aware of this film by reviewing it. Everything you said about it was correct, and it is one of the best movies of the year so far. Chava, check it out. All right, on to the third movie. And this was a movie that was a real surprise to me. Um, um, I didn't know quite what to expect going into it, because I hadn't really seen, I didn't see the trailer for it. I had heard this movie mentioned before it was made, that this movie was kind of coming up. And basically, I'd forgotten all about it until it showed up on Netflix. And my next best of the year movie is a Gareth Evans Havoc, starring Tom Hardy and Forrest Whitaker and Timothy Olyphant. And this movie is a throwback to, again, another kind of throwback to an older film. And this is very much in the vein of what used to be referred to in the 80s and 90s as the heroic bloodshed film. The kind of movie that John Woo and Ringo Lam did back in the day. Movies like The Killer and Hard Boiled and films of that nature. And this has to do with basically what it is you have Tom Hardy's character, who was at one point involved with a group of corrupt cops. And he's also become something of a fixer for a equally corrupt politician who's played by Forrest Whitaker. And Forrest Whitaker's son basically gets involved in this heist that kind of goes wrong and involves drugs in this Chinese gang. And the Chinese gang leader winds up getting killed, ambushed in this shootout. And his mother basically shows up with an army and basically tears the city apart, trying to find out who killed her son. Meanwhile, Forrest Whitaker has tasked Tom Hardy, go get my son and extricate him from this situation by any means freaking necessary. And this movie is wild. I did not think that they made action movies like this anymore. This is from Gareth Evans, who is the director of the Raid films, the creator of the Gangs of London TV series. He did another movie that's you can find on Netflix called Apostle. Very interesting film, kind of a folk horror action movie. It's interesting mashup of genres. I had a blast with this movie. I am a big action film fan. And I know there have been some bad reviews for it. But, and yeah, there are things that you can kind of nitpick. I don't like everything about it. But I'm rating it as high as I did because, man, I had such a good time watching it. And again, this movie that was bringing me back to a period of time with film that I thought had gotten lost. And that's kind of a theme with a lot of the movies, is they're throwbacks to kinds of movies that don't get made. There's nothing woke about any of these movies. Quite the opposite. There's no agenda. Nobody's preaching at you. You can just sit down and enjoy a movie again. And man, I had such a blast watching Havoc that I hope that this is a kind of action movie that gets brought back. Gareth Evans is the new John Woo. I am curious to see where he goes after this. I had a lot of fun with it. Havoc is on my best of the year list so far. Check it out. It's on Netflix. Fast-paced 105 minutes. I highly recommend it. Check it out. Yeah, I know. Yep. I yeeted myself in my own stream again. All right. So let's get on to movie number 4 on my list. And this is a movie I saw a little bit more recently. Let me hit share screen once again. And this is Mike Flanagan's The Life of Chuck, which is based on a Stephen King short story. If you ask me, really a novella, but they call it a short story. And this is one that really surprised me because I don't know the story. I hadn't read it, and honestly, I still haven't. But I am going to as soon as I possibly can. And I almost don't know how to describe this movie because it is. I know that people are going to think going in that okay, it's a Stephen King story. You have Mike Flanagan. Oh, it's going to be a horror movie. But it isn't. It's really a drama. That does have some it does have some supernatural elements, and there is a point where it kind of dips its toe into sci-fi. But I'm going to tell you this. It is it starts off where this kind of opening 40-minute segment, because the movie is divided into 3 main segments. And in the opening segment, this cataclysmic event has taken place, and it starts this kind of domino effect of other events happening. Volcanoes erupting, wildfires, floods, real end of the world stuff. And then the internet goes down permanently. And in the middle of all of this, you have a school teacher who's played by Chiwetel Ejiofor, who reconnects with his ex-wife, played by Karen Gillan. And everywhere they go, they're seeing signs, park benches, thanks Chuck for 39 years, and they're walking around. Well, who is this Chuck? Who is this guy? And that's the thing, is you do not see, other than on these billboards and park benches and all these likenesses of him that keep popping up, you don't see this character for the first 40 minutes of the movie. You're with this other group of characters. And then in the second segment, you cut to Chuck, and you find out kind of who this guy is, and you start getting his backstory. And you see him grow up, and you see him at 4 different stages in his life. You see him as a young boy of about 6 or 7. You see him at about 12 12 to 14. Then you get like the college age version, and then you get the adult Chuck, who's Tom Hiddleston. And I don't want to give away the film because I want people to go out and see this movie before it leaves theaters. Is you really go on an emotional roller coaster as you go through this man's life and see the people in his life that he has affected in one way or another. And there are a lot of great performances in this movie. He's a controversial character now in our circles, but Mark Hamill gives what I think is his best acting performance of all time in anything. He's really good here. He deserves an Oscar nomination. Mia Sara is in this film. First movie in 14 years. You might remember her from Ferris Bueller and Legend back in the 80s. Heather Langenkamp from Nightmare on Elm Street. Matthew Lillard is in the film. David Dastmalchian. There's all these kind of smaller, Carl Lumley. There's all of these little bit parts, that a lot of big name actors are in. But man, I tell you, this movie really surprised me. It knocked my socks off. I want to go see it again. Hopefully I'll have the opportunity. And hello to Big Al Presents. No worries. We're only about halfway through. This show's going to run a little bit long, guys. So if you want to go and head over to Geeky Geezers, I'll understand. But I still have a couple of more movies to go. So no worries. I know Enigma was saying in the chat that he was thinking of, he was considering this one. Please go see it. You will not be steered wrong. I'm being very vague about it because I don't want to give it away. But it is an amazing film. It's one of the best of the year. I know Al really enjoyed it. I know Sin did. I know Corey really liked it. Please go check this movie out, The Life of Chuck. And it is on my best of 2025 so far list. All right. Well, let's very quickly get on over to movie number 5. And this is an interesting film as well. And it's a movie that I think is the best film made so far by its director. That director is Ryan Coogler. And the next movie on my list is Sinners, with Michael B. Jordan in a dual role as Smoke and Stack twins, who are both ex-Army and have been working for Al Capone in some fashion. They return to Mississippi, to their hometown, to open up a juke joint in town. They get in. They meet along the way their cousin, who wants to become a blues musician. And along the way, you get to meet all of these characters who are in their lives. You get to meet the cousin's father, who's the town pastor. You get to meet Delroy Lindo's character, who is this aging blues man, and they want to get him to be the musician for the night. And you get this group of characters that they meet along the way that they kind of pull into this scheme to run this juke joint. And yeah, it does take a little while to get started, because it spends a long time to kind of introduce the characters and get to know them. And that was one of the cool things about it, I thought, was yeah, it was taking its time, but it needed the time. It was almost like it needed the time to breathe in a way, and to get to know all of the characters, including getting to know the characters who are the vampires as well. You know, and it's working on so many levels. The music is fantastic, and the appreciation of music, which in a way I think is really what the movie's about. You have all of the really cool From Dusk Till Dawn vampire type stuff that happens. You have these well drawn characters that you get to know. You get to learn about their life, their loves. You find out one of the twins had a son that died very young, and he's still kind of dealing with that. And then, you get to the vampires. And the vampires, the lead vampire, who's Jack O'Connell, he has a really interesting backstory too, because you have this Irish vampire, who goes back to, the unpleasantness in Ireland and basically being chased away from his birthright, and starved out of his home, which was something that really did happen. And you get his monologue about that of, where he's like, hey, we're not much different, and he's right. And, there's a point in the film where people may say, oh, here we go. Here's where it's going to get woke. Here's all of the white people are going to be evil. No, they're not, but you have to understand what was going on in Mississippi in the 30s. There was a certain group of people that were fashion victims that liked to mistreat anyone who didn't look like them or were from out of town, let's say. And yeah, that particular group of people shows up in this film. And how they are dealt with is one of my favorite scenes. I was just like, yes, get them. Yeah, take the sons of bitches down. They deserve it, but there is so much going on in this movie is that you can look at it as a character piece. You can look at it as a musical because of the musical scenes. You can look at it as a vampire film. You can look at it as a politics of the time film. And it all, for me anyway, worked. And I was really surprised. And Sinners made my best of list. And hello to Pacific 414 said, saw Sinners, thought it was pretty good. Yeah. I very much agree with you. Enigma says Delroy Lindo is pretty good in the film, and the ending really did bring some legitimate emotion because they took that time, like you said. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the $2 super chat and the birthday wishes once again. Thank you, Nate, for $2. Hello to my partner in crime, Outlaw Bill. And I want to thank, while Bill is here, I want to thank everybody who watched Western Cinema Presents. We had over 200 people watching the show live at one point or another. Thank you all for your continued support. Uh, if you missed it, go back and watch the show. We watched the extended version of Cowboys and Aliens. Hit the like, share out the stream, all that good stuff. All right. So Sinners is on my best of the year list. All right. We're running a little long, so I am going to make this a little bit quick. We are up to my final movie of the night, and that movie is Warfare, co-directed by Ray Mendoza and Alex Garland. And this is a slice of life true story about a day in the life of a group of Navy SEALs. I don't think they say at any point in the movie where they are, but it's assumed that they are in Iraq. You have this a platoon of Navy SEALs. They are on a surveillance mission in enemy territory. It goes wrong, and this kind of mini Black Hawk Down situation takes place. They are surrounded. They are fired upon. Their way of escape is taken away. There's an explosion, massive explosion. They lose a couple of guys. Several others are very badly injured. And it becomes this kind of fight for their lives as they wind up they are trapped in this apartment building. There are civilians that they're also trying to protect. And the other half of the team cannot come in and back them up because they are also under fire. And so it becomes this kind of race against time and race to survive. And the movie is told in real time. Once the fit hits the shan, you are watching it minute by minute what really happened. And Ray Mendoza, who is the co-writer, co-director of this film, it's based on his story. And it was his SEAL team that gets trapped. And I don't know quite how realistic exactly this movie is, but it probably is one of the more realistic war movies I've ever seen, and I've seen plenty of them. What I would really like to do is sit down and watch this movie with a guy who is a veteran of this war to see how authentic it really is, but it really does ring true. And the sound design is Oscar level. And again, this is another movie that's only about an hour and a half, and it doesn't need to be any longer. And it's very immersive. It puts you in it. You are literally a fly on the wall as this situation is going on around you. I saw it on IMAX. I've now seen it. I've seen it a number of times online. It is the movie I have seen the most times so far this year as well, because I showed it to a friend of mine. And it's an excellent film. If you missed it in theaters, it it does lose a little bit of something not having that surround sound and not seeing it on the big screen. It does lose a little bit of immersion on the small screen, but not much. I'm still really recommending this movie. Like I said, it's the one I've seen the most times so far this year. Go and check it out. Warfare, co-directed by Alex Garland and Ray Mendoza. All right, guys. So that's my. Those are the 6 movies that I have seen so far this year. That get my buy it on 4K rating. They're all throwbacks to a time in cinema that I thought we had lost. These are the movies that encourage me, that tell me that when it comes to cinema, all is not lost. There are still filmmakers out there that remember what inspired them, and filmmakers who remembered where they came from. To the makers of Black Bag, Chava, Havoc, The Life of Chuck, Sinners, and Warfare, I salute you tonight. You made the best movies of the year so far. And we'll see if you're there at the end of the year. I want to thank everyone currently following along on X. I can't see you, but I know that you're there. We had more than 30 people watching live. I hope that you enjoyed the show. Hit the like, share out the stream. If you're new to the channel and you like what you see, please feel free to subscribe and become a member. Enigma says, so I got a proposal. We should do a betting poll on where the rankings shake out for the end of the year top 10. I'm down for that, man. I want to thank everyone in the chat. Boomer, Tim, Bill, Nate, Enigma, Pacific, Connie, thank you, Nate, for the super chat. Big Al, Sashi, B. Penzak. From HQ, in all points, north, south, east, west, and beyond. Good night. Take care. Stay strong. As Eric 13 would say, watch more fucking film. Because this is how we win. I'll see you over in the chat for Geeky Geezers over on Aged Boomer's channel. Catch me tonight for reserved seats, 12:05 a.m. Eastern, 11:05 Central. Sin's Corner and Corey of Wilkie's Movies and Music. We'll continue the discussion. Good night. See you there.